We've spent the last 12 years building our off-grid life here in the UK.
We moved into a mobile home with no mains electricity or water,
And built all of our infrastructure from scratch.
including a water filtration system, barn and solar power system.
We also bought a polytunnel and have chickens.
It hasn't always gone to plan, and securing our water supply has been particularly difficult. After trying a borehole, which drew salt water, and shallow wells, which also drew salt water, we decided to build a large pond to increase the amount of rainwater we catch.
In this video, we'll talk about finding and buying our land,
Moving on here without being kicked off,
building a truly off-grid setup for water and electricity,
and increasing our food security.
as well as the project that we are putting all of our money and energy into for the foreseeable future. My dad found this in the local paper and we bought it, and there was nothing good about this land other than the fact it was cheap. It had nothing on it, had not a single tree, didn't even have grass, it was just mud connected to other muddy fields, really heavy clay and really windswept. And luckily, because I was quite young, I was 22, I had time to plant it out, and we thought, well, I've got time, let's do that. And I was lucky, I had the money to buy the land because I was living at home with mum and dad, and I got a loan, and that's how I bought it, because I was able to save a little bit, and I think I had £5 or something like that to put towards it, and then I had to loan 10, which I paid off over time, and that's how I did it. But I'd also started a business at 19, so I'd saved money and spent money on starting that. So that's where it came from, and that's how we ended up getting this piece of land, because we needed it for a yard, for logs and things like that, and a bit of storage. And the thing is, one thing leads to another. You get a yard, you might put some tools down there, and then they start getting stolen, and logs get stolen, and trees get stolen, and it's a nuisance really. And then you have to look to whether you're going to be able to be here or not.
When I first met Fraser, it very quickly became apparent that he was not like anybody I had ever met before, in a really good way. He told me early on about this land that he'd bought, that he'd planted over 3,000 trees, and I remember just thinking to myself, how amazing to meet somebody that is so driven, but not driven by money or status or chasing promotions, but by chasing freedom and by pursuing a life that matches what they want, not what society tells them they should have. And that was so refreshing for me, and I think it's fair to say I didn't fully get it straight away. And when I came here for the first time, I couldn't see it. The trees were about knee high, and I remember looking at this field with these tiny trees and just going, I can't imagine this being a woodland in like 10, 15 years, 20 years. I had no idea that it was going to grow into something so beautiful and look like it does now, as quickly as it did.
So we bought our land, planted the trees, was sort of running a business from it. We were putting logs down here, storing stuff, and we were having stuff nicked. So then what we ended up doing was moving down here, and we didn't ask, we just did it, because there was a chance if we asked they could say no, and then that would be my business over. And it was risky, but it was all risky, because we couldn't carry on like we were, and we just had to take the risk that people were going to leave us alone, and they did. We moved down here in February, and it didn't go to plan. Our mobile home sank into the mud right up to its axle, and me and my dad spent the whole day digging it out by hand.
I will never forget the first day that we moved on here, for all the wrong reasons. It was an awful day. I had never seen Fraser so stressed or under so much pressure. He was physically exhausted. He had been laying in that mud, in that freezing cold mud, all day, digging continuously, trying to get this thing moved, and it was agony to watch. He was just exhausted. And whilst I didn't suffer it in the same way he did, it was painful to watch. That first night, it felt like it was a good idea to all be here together, but there was no way we could stay in the mobile home, so we tried to sleep in the back of our Mazda 3 with 2 dogs, which was not easy. It was freezing. absolutely freezing, and the dogs were clambering all over us, and Fraser just turned to me and said, "You've got to take these dogs home and I'll be fine." And so I took the car home and he stayed in his truck. And I remember leaving him and going back to our house, and I rang my mum and I said, "I had no idea how much this meant to him. I get it now. Like, I fully get it." Because he was willing to endure so much to get it. I thought he really deserves it. And that was when I think that was the day that I fully, that was the day for me there was no going back. We were gonna make this work. Because no one should ever want something that much and not get it.
If you're in a confined space with your kids and your wife in a little tiny mobile home, it tests boundaries. And I remember when we first moved down here, people were saying, "Is she still there?" They said, is she still there? Oh, how's she coping? There was a lot of concern about Rachel. I think because my wife's fairly well spoken, they thought she would crack. Thing is, she was a lot better than me at it. She can put up with an awful lot, and there's never been any cracks at all.
We get a lot of comments saying, "Oh, I can't believe your wife puts up with it. My wife wouldn't put up with that," or my partner. It's not always wives. My partner doesn't want to live that way. And all I can say is that for me, his dream has become my dream, and now it is our whole family dream, and it's what our entire it's what our family's built upon. So yeah, I love it as much as he does. Some days maybe more.
Not one time have we argued about we shouldn't have done this, which is lucky, because that's not what I hear from a lot of people. There's a lot of people, couples that just go, "I'm just not doing it, no way," and that ends it for them. That ends the dream.
Those early days were rough, and I like to think I'm a fairly resilient person, that we're both resilient people, but it definitely pushed us to our limits. It was freezing, and I don't even remember the entire heating setup. I just remember it being so cold.
So in the early days, it was an absolute struggle, because we didn't have a constant supply of electricity. We were running the generator sometimes. We moved down here, the boiler wouldn't work because it wouldn't work with the generator. There was a floating neutral problem that no one could work out, and no one could tell us how to make it work. And in the end, I had to do something really random and wire it completely wrong to get it to work. I can't remember what I did, but I got it to work. But it would only work intermittently when the generator was on, and you wouldn't want that one all the time because it cost a fortune. It really was expensive to have all the time without charging batteries and things. You weren't getting the most out of it. Running some lights on a TV and maybe the boiler and a fridge, although the fridge broke on about day 2 because it didn't like getting turned off and on like that. So we had a cool box, and we would plug the cool box in when the generator was on. But what I was doing is taking a frozen milk from a freezer I had at my mum and dad's, and the frozen milk would defrost in the cool box and keep the rest of our stuff cool. And I basically did that every day for years. Years and years we lived without electricity. When we moved down, it was freezing cold. The gas fire broke on really quickly. I think it was 3 days in. So not only did the fridge just blow up, the gas heater in the living room, that stopped working. And we were here weeks before we could rip that out and get the wood burner in, because there was so much going on. We did it all at the same time. This was the problem. Theft was such a big problem that we couldn't leave anything here. We had to make do, get down here, secure as we could on that same day, really, and start building from there and rough it. And you know, you think that, oh, I'll just plug that in and that'll work, that heat will work. No, so the gas fire wouldn't work, so it was freezing. We didn't have a gas fire. The only heating we had was the oven. We had the oven on, and the mobile was absolutely, it had icicles dripping off of it. That first winter, it was, and the wind blowing across the fields, it was horrendous.
And all of this time I was working full time as a head of school. So I would wake up in the morning and it would be pitch black because we had no power. We'd maybe then run the generator for an hour or so while I tried to sort of, so I could see what I was doing and try and get sort of an outfit together to go and look like a responsible adult. And then I'd go to school, and those first early days I would go to school for about 6 o'clock in the morning so that I could do my makeup, do my hair, and make myself look like I was a reasonably functioning responsible adult and worthy of being in charge of a school. And then I would do a whole day of school, and then I would go home back to this sort of like frozen mud pit. And that went on for a long time, and that was hard because it was hard to have the two lives run alongside each other. But it wasn't as hard as it was for Fraser, because of course I was inside all day and I was warm, whereas he would be freezing cold at home, go and work outside all day, and then come back and be freezing again, and that was rough. But we got through it, and it was definitely worth it. If I had to do it all again, I would.
I remember my dad phoning me up early one morning after we'd had a real cold one, and I was just like shivering on the phone, going, yeah, we're fine. Literally couldn't hold it together, so cold.
And I look back at it now and I think that is crazy. But at the time we just got on with it. We had no running water, no flushing toilets, which was interesting. And it was very cold winter as well. And yeah, digging holes in the woods isn't fun when it's frozen ground.
We were having to dig a hole in the woods 1 or 2 times a day. And I remember it was one particularly frozen morning. I said to Rachel, is there anything I can do? I think it was her birthday. I said, anything you want me to do today? And she said, yeah, can you dig my poo hole?
Honestly, the stuff we've done.
It was rough. It was a rough time. And this is why it annoys me when you get people going, yeah, off-grid life. It's not off-grid life unless it's actually off-grid, you know, and you're having to do those things yourselves, and you put that infrastructure in.
So the first thing we got sorted was water, and water has been something that has evolved for us. It's been the hardest thing to get sorted, and it started with some IBC tanks and the filtration system. It was the first infrastructure really that Fraser built for us, and it was amazing to learn all about how it works. And that first glass of water, which had been collected, rainwater that had been collected and then filtered by a system that we'd built, that was a really good glass of water, and that was a big change. Having running water was a game changer, and it felt like such a luxury. But of course, because it's all powered by pumps, we only had it when we had the generator on. The solar was a massive thing that we needed to get sorted.
So then eventually, after the 4 years and 1 day, we sold our house. And then we could afford to do the solar and the barn.
I remember watching Fraser research the solar power system over months and months and months. And there were so many parts to it. At the time, there wasn't a lot on YouTube about it. The kits weren't the same. There were very few people in the UK who were doing it and sharing it on YouTube as well, so there was no example to follow. So he just had to research it, piece together the information he could find, and then he built it. It took a long time, it was stressful. I helped here and there. It was the only time I've ever used anything that I learnt in GCSE science. I remember the first time we switched it on, tens of thousands of pounds of equipment, and you have no idea for sure that it's going to work how you want it to work. And Fraser was up in the barn where all the gear is kept, and he switched it on, and Ray, his dad, was stood by the bottom of the ladder. By this point Grace had been born, and she was a baby, and I was in the house with her, and Fraser called across to me and he said, it's on. And I remember just reaching to switch on the light switch and it working, and looking across at Ray and going, it's working, I can't believe it's working. And then he called up to Fraser, and it was such an amazing moment. Oh my god, we're gonna have full-time power, no more using a cold box, and no more having to put the generator on in order to have a light on when it was dark. You know, we'd raised a baby under those conditions, and we switched it on when she was 10 months old, and to have got through all that and to then have full-time power and the full-time water that came with it, because the pumps would work all the time, was just the best. That was a really good day.
It was amazing, really, and I came down and I was like, we've got power. Bloody hell, we've got power. I can't believe it. I've done it. I've actually built something that's worked.
So we fitted the solar through COVID, and even as we were drawing an end to that project, we knew where we had to go next. COVID showed us that food security was a massive problem, and we both felt really strongly that the rest of the money we had from our house sale should go on sorting some food security. So we bought a polytunnel and put it up. By the time we finished that, Albie had just been born, and that summer we grew our first food. Albie was just starting to eat solids by the time we were harvesting our first crop, and it was amazing to be able to feed both of them stuff that we'd grown ourselves. It's brought a whole new dimension to living here. A lot more work, but a whole new dimension to this life.
And obviously start small, and then we grew more and more and more, and this year looks like it's going to be our best year yet, despite it being dry, because now we've got the water situation a bit more under control.
Of all the jobs, I think the pond was the most gruelling. That was a long project, and it was tough. And for Fraser to do it pretty much entirely on his own, because I was spending most of my time looking after the kids or working, he just kept going and going, and by the end of it, I think it got pretty miserable. But like all projects, it was worth it in the end. Seeing that pond fill over the winter made it all worth it. And knowing that what had been a real threat to our off-grid life, this issue of not being able to secure our water supply, knowing that that had come to an end was amazing. And now it's so beautiful.
The pond is an absolutely brilliant thing for wildlife. It's given the kids so many things to do.
We have a moorhen nesting, we've got ducks, we've had geese, we've had a heron. They're seeing so many different types of wildlife because of it. It's brought a whole different dimension to here. It's absolutely made it. It's the cherry on the top. It really is.
And then we've got chickens, so we've got some livestock, you know, for a little bit. Things go wrong, we've got some food we can eat. I mean, if things went really wrong, I think for most people around here, the best thing they could eat is pigeon, because there's bloody loads of them. Thousands of pigeons. No one's going to go hungry if they can catch a pigeon. Survival food. And rabbits. I mean, around here we know we've got a lot of rabbits because we haven't had rain in 3 months, and the grass has gone orange because the only water this grass has seen is rabbit. We've got meat birds, and we've got lots of eggs, and yesterday we got like 16 eggs from 22 birds, which isn't bad. We have more, we have less. There's a lot of eggs to get through, which is good. We've got plenty of eggs. You know, we'd like more livestock, but we haven't got the time. We'd like a cow, but who wants to milk it twice a day? And obviously we've got bees, so we've got the sweet stuff as well. And bees have done brilliantly this year because of the flowers. It's been dry. We've had a real good honey, lot of spring honey. I took a whole box off the other day, full box of honey. Got 22 jars of honey out of that, big jars of honey out of that. When we decided we were going to move down here, we wanted a house in the woods. That was the idea. A house in woodland, not to be farmers really, because we weren't thinking there was such a concern about having to be off-grid in those days and have some security. That wasn't our main concern. The main concern was security as in terms of things being stolen and living in a nice woodland. That was the dream. But there's one element left now.
There's just one job left to do.
And that is the house.
And that's to build the house.
And that's what we're going to start to build.
And I'm really looking forward to getting started on it, but I'm also really scared. Because although we've done big projects before, there's something about this one. This isn't just a project like the other ones have been. This is a house. This is a house for our kids, a home for our family. And there's a lot riding on it. Grace understands what's going on. She's really excited. She's got big plans for her room and for the house in general. She draws it sometimes and talks to us about what it's going to look like.
We're going to build a new house, and it's going to have a living room upstairs and one great big door downstairs. So my bedroom is going to have hearts on it.
This mobile home that we're living in is getting too small. We're outgrowing it, and now's the time to move on to something else. And I think I can feel the pressure of that a little bit. of affording it, of supporting Fraser, because let's face it, he's going to be the one that's leading on it, and he's going to need support in doing that because it's not easy. Building a house from scratch on your own, it's going to be interesting to watch, for sure. But the thing is, I just know he can do it. I have seen him do so much so far. I know we'll stick together as a team. I just know he'll do it. No doubts. From the day that we moved on here, I've just known. And this is the final piece.
We can look back someday. Baby, don't you understand that we only get one life? I wanna make it count, honey. Come on now and take my hand.
And it's going to be a bunk bed. I'm going to be up there and our baby's down here. And the stairs are going to be like this. Doo, 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 doo.